Reports citing UK intelligence agencies claim an incident involving a Chinese submarine has killed 50 personnel. According to the Sun newspaper, as many as 55 Chinese sailors were aboard their submarine when it became stuck underwater. It's believed the vessel hit a trap known as a chain and anchor. Let's bring in former Senator and former submariner Rex Patrick for his thoughts on this. Media reporting in the United Kingdom, intelligence around this, it doesn't sound good for those submariners, does it, Rex?
Look, Kieran, good afternoon. The details are very sketchy, but my understanding is this is an event that took place a while ago, in the last month or so, and that the submarine hadn't actually gone missing, but there had been an incident. And noting that these submarines have a crew of about 100 people, it had an incident that left it stuck in a trap, and then it's made its way to the surface. But in the process of that, we've seen, or we understand, that some Chinese submariners have been killed. Now, just to play out the scenario, these sorts of traps would typically be in relatively shallow water, so they'd be in choke points or around facilities that the Chinese Navy were hoping to protect. A mistake must have been made of some sort, because one would think that a submarine commander would be aware of these traps and their locations. So something's gone wrong. The submarine has become trapped in some way. Now, that in itself wouldn't result in the sorts of deaths that have been reported. We know from just recently with the Titan that people understood that there were 40 hours or quite a lengthy time period where you can live underwater without necessarily having CO2 absorption or indeed oxygen generation. And I, as a submariner, I've spent 12, even 24 hours underneath the water without having air drawn into the submarine or without running those sorts of equipments. So something else has then gone wrong to cause the air to be contaminated, to cause the death of these sailors, the unfortunate death. One of the things that concerns me about this is just the lack of transparency that sits around the Chinese Navy in circumstances like this. That's a major concern.
We wouldn't expect.
The other thing that this highlights.
Yeah, but just on that point, Rex, we wouldn't expect transparency from the Chinese military. It'd be a surprise to get it, I would have thought. So if we're going to get any information, and as this report has proven, it'll be from Western intelligence, won't it?
Yeah, look, if the submarine had been lost and not returned, I think that's an impossible scenario to keep secret, because ultimately there will be families that end up saying something, and these things are noticeable. So it's quite plausible that some incident has occurred. The Chinese Navy has essentially said we're not going to release any details about this, but in all of these circumstances, we've got a growing Chinese Navy. It's ramping up in terms of its submarine capability. One wonders whether or not the training that they're receiving is as solid as it might be, particularly when you've got a Navy that is expanding rapidly. I think most countries would expect at least some form of transparency, particularly around incidents that relate to nuclear-powered submarines.
So rather than being lost or missing, as you pointed out in your first answer, it was a trap and set by the Chinese Navy itself in its own territory.
Yeah, so it may have been set to stop, or in fact to in some way disable perhaps an American or a Japanese or a Korean or a UK submarine that might be conducting intelligence operations in those areas, that they wouldn't know that this trap was in place. So it's surprising that the Chinese Navy ended up running into this. Now, that could be as simple as some person preparing a chart didn't mark it on the chart. There could have been a navigational error. The submarine captain or crew could have lost situational awareness. So there's a whole bunch of things, but something's definitely gone wrong that you run into your own trap.
Oh, exactly. And in terms of the Chinese naval capacity. We're hearing so many ships being built, by, basically by the month. It's growing, in a very quick and huge fashion. But you have doubts over whether the training is keeping up with that growth.
Well, submariners are the pinnacle operators in a navy. They operate in an environment that is dangerous. They need to be well trained. They need to be well experienced. And it's very difficult to grow a navy quickly and retain that experience average right across the fleet. And that this incident may be a signal that the Chinese government ought to be taking notice of. But in general, the other thing that this raises concerns about is that when you've got a submarine force that's not operating as professionally as one might hope, it can cause incidents. And the South China Sea is now becoming very filled with foreign military, foreign submarines, and it's a geopolitical tinderbox. So all of these things in some way raise other concerns.
Rex Patrick, former senator and submariner, thanks so much for your time. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Kieran.